Welcome aboard. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Ahysen Nation, and we are glad to have you here. Good hello to everybody. I don't know what that was all about. We are back for another edition of Ahysen Nation. It is Tuesday, August the 17th already. And today, it's going to be a very uplifting show toward the end. I want to make sure that we get this information out. We're going to talk about brain injury, specifically how life is not over after brain injury, and there's a lot more brain injuries than we know, traumatic brain injuries than we know. I'm going to be looking down just a little bit because I want to make sure I get this up and running for you. We're going to give you a quick update on what could have ended a lot worse than it did. We've had extensive coverage on a shooting that happened about 2.5 weeks ago in the area of Highland at I-10. That's where part of it was at, and then Bluebonnet to Jefferson is kind of where it ended. You remember the family that we talked about, the Tulloses. That's Rachel and Debbie and Vandy Tullos. And Rachel is autistic and has a school she belongs to in just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And if you remember the story, Rachel has to have a negative COVID test to be qualified to go back to school. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago on a Sunday, Rachel and Debbie had gone to a facility to get a COVID test for her negative test so she could return back to the school. And what had happened was they were waiting in their car for the results of the test, and they got shot. We're not going to talk about the shooting and any of the implications of that, other than the fact that the gentleman was trying to hijack or steal their car, and 9 bullets went into this car. All right, 2 of them hit. 1 hit Rachel, 1 hit Debbie, as you know, out of the 9 bullets. And there were a lot of things that happened that caused what I consider to be miracles in this case, because they will recover fully. And that's another thing too. 1 person was stabbed to death, another person was in critical, and 2 other people were in critical condition, and 2 people that were shot, the news story reported, and we reported, and we do this all the time, non-life-threatening injuries. Well, I can tell you from following the Tullis' story, the non-life-threatening injuries have changed these ladies' lives forever. They were both in the hospital. Debbie was in the hospital for 2 weeks. She had a bullet that entered her cheek and ended up in her shoulder with no exit wound. So you can see how close it was to the trachea and to your carotid arteries. Missed them completely. She's had 2 surgeries. One was about 6.5 hours and one was a 3-hour follow-up. And her jaws are wired shut, broke her jaw, pierced her tongue. She will make a full recovery, but I don't want to pass that off as saying she'll make a full recovery with absolutely no problem. She may have to have future surgeries. Her life has completely changed. Her daughter Rachel, which she was shielding, went into the shoulder and never had an exit wound and lodged in this shoulder, broke her collarbone, and again, missing the trachea, missing the arteries. And another bullet grazed Debbie's head, did not penetrate the skull, but grazed her head to where she did have to have staples to sew up the skin. That could have ended much differently for these ladies. Nick Tullier. Nick Tullier is another victim Nick was one of the officers, you remember, that was shot back in 2016, and his story didn't end quite as well as Rachel and Debbie's, if you can consider their story ending well. He is, quote, expected to live, was what the news story said, but his brain injury was a traumatic brain injury where he needs 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care, and it was heartbreaking to watch what happened to that family as they dealt with that and continue to deal with that to this day. They have a Facebook page. They post updates all the time. I think this is day number 1856 or something since the shooting, and they post daily updates. And he just needs major medical attention. I'm leading somewhere because today's guest is also a victim of a traumatic brain injury. We can have traumatic brain injuries, obviously, from shootings and things like that, from car accidents, from riding your bicycle and getting thrown from your bicycle without wearing a helmet, falling off of a ladder, falling and hitting your head in the bathroom on the sink. Some of these can end up really, really scary. So the Brain Injury Association of Louisiana is hosting their 3rd annual Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competitions coming up October 22nd and 23rd. And this organization is fascinating, and my guest is absolutely going to blow you away with what has happened to her, how it changed her life, and how she has moved into this positive role, being on the board of directors to this organization and helping advocate for people with disabilities, and women especially. Her name is Nicole Marquez-Gravier. She lives in New Orleans, and her story will blow you away, and her goal is to get the word out to thousands of ladies around the community about the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition, 3rd annual, coming up in October. Don't know yet if it's going to be virtual or live. If it's live and in person, it'll be at the Holiday Inn Express, downtown Baton Rouge. If it's virtual, they will still have the competition, and they're leaning toward that very much so because of this recent outbreak. She's on the board of directors of the Brain and Spinal Injury Association, and her story is going to just blow you away. We recorded this interview yesterday, and it had such a tremendous impact on me that I wanted to share it with everybody on the Ahysen Nation this week. And if you know anybody or have anybody that has ever had a traumatic brain injury, their life doesn't necessarily need to be over, depending on the severity of it. In fact, before we get to Nicole's interview, I want to play you, Debbie's return, Debbie Tullos' return from the hospital just this past week. This is her with a police escort coming up the road. She's got a police escort, and that's Debbie and Vandy in Vandy's pickup truck. We all line the streets of their neighborhood. And again, I'm not singling out these. This can be a story, and is story, and a story all over the city every day, all over our community every day. These senseless shootings, and Debbie has her jaw wired shut. We just expected her to wave from the truck. No, she took balloons that she brought in from the hospital. She gets out of the truck, walks around to the front of the truck, and gives her daughter Rachel, who was also shot but was released a week earlier, this big bear hug. Look at this. That's Debbie Tullos. That could have ended so much differently had she had the bullet go into her head.
God's love right there.
And so many people don't have this type of ending to their story. So many people. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. So what a great story that was to tell, and I was happy to be there and be a part of that. But I mean, that could be so many, hundreds of people in the community that have been victims of either shootings or accidents that have left people in need of care. But Nicole is going to very much inspire you. And again, we taped this yesterday, so you may hear us referring to the 16th, but today is the 17th, but we taped it on the 16th. I'm gonna get right to the interview right now. Here we go. So you are a wheelchair-bound person, is that correct?
One would think so. I'm actually classified as an ambulatory quadriplegic, which means I do have control of some of my limbs, and then there's some that I'm not. So I'm able to walk, but this is the best place to live because when I walk, I kind of look like a drunk and nobody bothers me.
Interesting. Well, tell me
Yes.
about your brain injury and how this led to where you are now.
Okay. In a nutshell, about 12 years ago, I was living in New York as an aspiring dancer and actress. And one day, after a fantastic audition, I came home, realized I was locked out of my apartment. I went to the roof where my roommates and I lived, thought that maybe I could go down the fire escape, get into an open window, decided it was a horrible idea, turned around to walk away, and that's the very last thing I remember. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed and learned I'd fallen 6 stories from the roof of my apartment building.
Oh my gosh.
It's
So,
crazy.
so you have a major spinal cord injury then, right?
I do. I have a spinal cord injury and I have mild brain damage from the accident.
You wouldn't know. I mean, when I think of people with brain damage, they're not articulate. They are very dependent, and you're a very independent woman.
Well,
And
thank you.
I could not tell from our conversations on the phone that you had any disability whatsoever. I
No,
mean,
well,
so
thank
your
you. I
brain
think that's
injury
the
must be.
misconception with a lot of individuals because when you hear brain and spinal, I think that there's a certain idea that pops in your head where you're not able to say or speak words clearly. You have to have assistance 24/7, and that does exist. But believe it or not, with nonprofits and different I'd say like group meetings and physical therapy and whatnot. Some individuals with brain and spinal injuries are very, very well spoken and live very, very fulfilling lives.
Have in your experience, and I'm sure you've dealt with or met with a lot of other people that have different types of brain injuries or disabilities. What is one of the is there a brain injury that is more common than others? I mean, we talked earlier in the program. You weren't on with us at the time. Um, One of our police officers that had been shot several years ago and has a permanent brain injury and is pretty much totally disabled. I mean, living, he's living, but he's pretty much totally disabled from a gunshot wound. Are
Mhm.
there things that are more common for brain injuries than others?
Everybody is different and every injury is different. Though there are individuals such as myself that have brain injuries, each brain injury is different, just like each spinal cord injury is different. So, whenever it comes to progressing and recovering, I think the best thing for all of us individuals that are in this position to know is that things happen when they happen and there is no timeline to your recovery. So believe it or not, even though someone has a brain injury, that brain injury is very, very different from this person over here that has one or that person over there that has one.
Are these types of brain injuries different than people that are born with a congenital defect of some kind?
That I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm not a medical doctor, but just from my experience, being around different individuals with brain injuries, it varies. It really does. It varies, and it really just depends on the level of injury.
What, I'm assuming you had to go through some rehabilitation before you could get to the place that you are now. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm in physical therapy right now because uh, I think what a lot of people forget once they leave therapy is that the body still progresses as well as the brain. So you kind of got to think of your brain and your body like a car. You have to take your car into the shop every now and then to get a tune up. So as the years go by, it's good to go back into therapy just to get that tune up. which is why I'm in physical therapy right now, because it's time for my car to go into the shop and get adjusted and back in place.
You had a life-changing situation, and I got to ask you, I don't know how comfortable you are or uncomfortable you are talking about certain things.
I'm an open book. Go for it.
Are you bitter?
Well, I'm not a robot. I have my moments. Not every day is full of sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. There are definitely times I have moments where for example, I'm unable to drive. So it's very frustrating because that feeling of just being able to get in the car when you're in a mood and just drive and put your radio on, I don't have that luxury. And there are other little things that I'm not able to do. So bitter is a very hard word. I have moments where I get sad, and the reality and the gravity of my situation hits hard. But then at the same time, I remind myself, I woke up today. My heart is beating. I'm alive. So that kind of offsets that nasty mood that kind of creeps in.
How long ago was your fall?
12 years ago.
And you were unconscious for a period of time? When you woke up,
I
had there been
was
a-
on the ground for 8 hours until I was discovered. Because I fell into the air shaft of my building. And if you're familiar with New York, all the buildings are very, very close together. Well, there are air shafts in between each building, so there can be a nice steady wind flow. Lucky for me, I actually fell right into the air shaft, so I didn't fall on the sidewalk. That would have been not so good. But yes, I fell right into the air shaft.
Boy, there's so many things.
It's crazy.
So many things I want to ask and things like that. But do you? I mean, with your disability, you could still act.
Oh yeah. But it's a what was I gonna say? It's something you got to build up to, because nobody prepares. You can't prepare for a life-altering event. It doesn't exist. There's no handbook. There's no manual. I still can act and I still can dance. It's very, very different from what it was before, but I get to navigate this new life and see what my body is capable of. I've actually been able to be an extra in a few television shows and movies being filmed here, and I love it because being an extra is basically all based on your photo. So if I ever do get a call, it's like, all right, I still got it.
So are you a member of SAG, or do you have any type of agent?
I'm not a member. No agent, no SAG. Right now, it's fun, and it's also I'm building my self-confidence up again to be in front of the camera, because I'm a woman and we have an entire industry built on beauty. And when you're a certain way and something like this happens, everything is changed, everything is altered. And for me, it's nice to feel like a woman after a while when you've been in a hospital gown for months on end without doing your hair or putting on your clothes. So it's a confidence thing. For me, at least, it's a confidence thing. And I'm still working on it. But right now, I like being an extra because it's building me up a little bit more and a little bit more. And I'm getting that confidence back a little bit more and a little bit more.
So you were single when this accident happened 12 years ago, is that correct?
Yes.
And you have now happily married?
I am. Yes, very much so. We actually met here in Louisiana, and we're both from out of state. And he just happens to work in the film industry, so we have a lot in common and a lot of things that we can talk about. And I gotta tell you, ain't no wedding like a New Orleans wedding. Whew.
Now, is that where you live right now, Nicole? Is it in New Orleans, or where did you tell me you lived? I don't.
Yes, I live in New Orleans, and like I said, my walking is a little bit wobbly. I'm actually working on it, but walking here is great because, like I said, I look like a drunk and nobody bothers me.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. What?
Thanks. Might as well have a good attitude about this.
And you do. You've got a great attitude because we've talked 2 or 3 times in the last couple of months. What? I'm not going to harp on the fall. I'm just so blown away at falling 6 stories down and living to tell about it. I mean, that's in itself a miracle.
Yeah.
Do you remember slipping, and do you remember the actual, or has your brain completely shut that out?
I think I don't remember falling at all. I'm assuming that's my brain just protecting me, which great. I will back that up. I don't need to remember. I just remember walking away, turning around, and thinking to myself, "This is a bad idea. I don't need to do it." And turning around to walk away, and then the next time I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed.
Land
And
sakes.
it's crazy. And the thing about it is, my story, even though it sounds like very just like mind blowing, I am one of many other individuals that you hear of. That when I hear of other men and women and what they've gone through and what they're accomplishing now, I'm always so blown away because it just proves that I don't know, that disability doesn't really have to have a stigma around it. That, we're just like everybody else, a little bit different, but what some of these individuals are accomplishing and have accomplished, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're all in this together.
Did this affect you spiritually? I don't know much about your faith background, but where are you with that? Before and after fall.
I believe in a heaven and a hell, and I know that once I meet my guardian angels, I need to give them a big hug and say, you can finally take a break because they've been working overtime for me. And when I fell, I did believe that I was protected because medical science is incredible. It's amazing, but there's some things you just can't prove. So there you go.
That is just amazing. Thank you so much for being so candid and upfront with your story.
Absolutely.
I want to move on and kind of to something a little bit more positive that you and I are the reason we're connected with. You sent me a note several months ago about the upcoming October Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition.
There you
First
go.
of all,
yes.
I didn't know that there was such a thing. I didn't know that there was a national competition that the local person went to. How did you get involved in this? Are you a member of the board? Are you organized this entire thing? Or
so I moved from Mississippi to Louisiana. I'm from Mississippi originally, and believe it or not, there are 12 top rehabilitation centers in the country. We just happen to be on the map, so I was able to do my rehabilitation there. I wanted to keep progressing, and Louisiana and New Orleans just seemed like the perfect fit. But I knew I was on the board. I was on the Brain and Spinal Cord Injury Board in Mississippi, and I knew that I wanted to still be on the board once I moved to Louisiana. Luckily, I was very fortunate to be able to get on the board. I am a board member, and Karen Roy brought the, give me a second, I'm getting tongue-tied. On the board, while I was on the board, one of our members, Karen Roy, had won the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition in 2019 and wanted to bring it to the state. And then when she did, this whole world opened up for us. I myself was not aware of the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition, let alone the Miss Wheelchair America competition. And I think it's incredible because, just like you said, the main mission of this competition, it's not about beauty, it's not about looks, it has nothing to do with that. It's more about these women their advocacy, educating their community. And really, it's a network for these women to meet one another and be like, oh my God, so I'm not alone. There's someone else just like me that I can get on the phone and call. And just thinking about that and thinking about how majority of the state is not very familiar with our organization, and we're fixing that. We're trying to, really spread out. But also I'm thinking about, all these women who are in wheelchairs across the state who need that network and need that support. So when I had the opportunity to come on as one of the coordinators, that was it for me. Because I just I want the positivity that I've seen and I've felt to go out to these women as well.
We're looking at some of these pictures.
Hope
We're
that
looking
makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm looking at a picture of Karen, and she was the 19 winner, right? 2019?
Yes,
And she's the lady with the
2019.
black hair here, sitting next to a lady with blonde hair who is the 2020 winner, correct?
Tamara Green, yes, Tamara actually just competed in the Miss Wheelchair America. Sadly, Louisiana didn't place this year, but let's change that.
Now, the next picture, I see 5 ladies in wheelchairs. It looks like she's in the middle in this one in a red dress. Is that correct? I'm looking at picture number 1.
Technical difficulties. I'm bringing it up.
No problem.
All right, so yes, now she was crowned. This is Karen's crowning in 2019, and Tamara's crowning you'll see on image 3. That was in 2020.
I see. I gotcha. Now, what is this group? Picture 2. What is the group here? It looks like there's a gentleman in the middle.
Okay, so as part, once you become Miss Wheelchair Louisiana, part of your duties is to go around the state and attend different conferences, like any kind of ribbon cuttings, interviews. So this is Karen just on her circuit with, I want to say that this is from the Miss Wheelchair America competition. And
Wow.
these are other individual winners from different states.
And then this is a great picture. This last one of Karen and Tamara.
Tamara, yeah. We did we worked on a commercial with them a couple of months back to promote the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition, and just wait, because you're at nauseum. I'm going to be sending out a bunch more
I'm ready for 'em.
commercials and publicity. Oh yeah, I'm excited about it. Well, this is the thing. When all of us sat down, Tamara and Karen both, their stories are incredible. My story is incredible. Their stories are incredible. And the fact that they're like doing what they do is just mind blowing. But when we were talking about the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition, something that really resonated with me when I was talking to Tamara was thinking that because we're a little under the radar and not a lot of women in wheelchairs across the state know about us, put yourself in their position. If I am a female and I was just in a crazy accident, I'm now wheelchair bound. I live in a small town in Louisiana. I don't really have access to go out to physical therapy. I don't really have access to get around to meet other individuals in wheelchairs. And I'm just sitting at home. And then I see a commercial or read something about this competition. The first thing in my mind would be, there are other women around the state like me. That's the whole point of doing this competition, is to introduce these women to one another and let them know you're not alone. Because the hardest thing is when you're telling somebody about your injury and having them say the words, I understand.
And they
That's
really
kind
do.
of our,
And they really,
right,
really
like,
do.
that's our go-to as human beings. But there's a part of you as the individual who has the disability that goes, no, you don't. You don't say that outright, but in your brain, it's like you don't get it. Talking to someone who has been through this and their own way, who's gone through their own pitfalls, highs and lows, and you both can relate to one another, that is why we're doing this. That is why we want to have this network, because nobody likes to feel alone. Nobody does. I mean, it's just like a football player that suffers something traumatic, like a brain injury, or maybe has to have a limb removed or whatnot. When they talk to their other teammates, having those teammates coming saying, "Oh man, I understand," like it's kind of a punch in the gut. You understand they're trying to be kind, but you don't get it. But then to meet another individual who's going through the same thing across, the state is like, oh my God, now I feel like I have a lifeline. And I feel like there are other people like this.
Yeah, it's a sorority of like-minded people that have had major traumatic events similar to yours, and I can see where that would be very positive from a mental health standpoint too, to network with that.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because, well, how many years have we been on this planet and we still haven't cracked the code to the human brain? It does some wild stuff.
Well, listen, the competition is scheduled for October 22nd, 23rd. I know with the outbreak of COVID, the resurgence of this stupid illness, that may or may not be in person. Is there someone watching? If there's someone watching, is it too late for women to enter this competition?
No, not at all. In fact, let me pull up my calendar. I think our cutoff to sign in will be, today is the 16th, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Our cutoff will be Monday the 23rd.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yes,
so
so
we got time
Monday,
to promote it for the next
Monday
week,
the 23rd.
the following week. Now, how do they go about? Is there a qualification process, or is any female allowed to compete that is in a wheelchair? Do you have to be in a wheelchair, or can your disability be?
You do have to be in a wheelchair. As far as like manual or electronic, it doesn't matter, but you do have to be in a wheelchair, and you must be over the age of, I want to say 21. And I'm going to let Karen and Tamara confirm that. But these women are still able to enter. The best way to enter is, we do have a website, but Facebook, we have our own Facebook page. If you go to the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana competition, all the information will be there. And I'm assuming you'll be able to share this with your viewers. We have links. And even though it is going to be in October, the 22nd and the 23rd, we're actually doing it via Zoom because of this crazy outbreak, just like you said. But this is great because the pressure as far as like, oh, how am I going to get there? What about rooms? Am I going to stay in? This, that, and the other. All of that can disappear because this will just be virtually. We're really, really excited about it.
Well, what kind of things are going to be judged? What are you going to be judged on? Certainly not, appearance or things like a traditional pageant.
Right. I really feel like this is a different, let's see, give me a second. I'm trying to. So these women need to be articulate, definitely need to be enthusiastic about being an advocate to not only other individuals, but in their community, educating their community. They need to be available, or I guess be available to, if asked to be interviewed or make an appearance, just need to be available for that. And the reason why is they're not so much being on display for everybody, but they're educating individuals in different areas of the state of what it's like to be in a wheelchair, how to help, letting them know, paying attention to little things so that the community can all get involved. And in case I got anything wrong, I definitely want Tamara and Karen to talk to you.
But basically, they're representing the
Just to
Brain
make
Injury
sure.
Association of Louisiana. The winner will be competing Do you know when National is?
Actually, we just had nationals for 2020. And I want to say that the nationals, just because everything is so up in the air with dates and whatnot, it usually happens in August in Las Vegas.
Wow, how fun.
Right.
That is
Yes,
fantastic.
it is fun, but something that you should know that many other individuals should know, I found this out. Winning the Miss Wheelchair, Louisiana, Alabama, Utah, whatever it is, in that state, once you win, the winner has to go around, make all these appearances and whatnot. It's on their own dime. And just like going to the Miss Wheelchair America competition, unlike the Miss America competition, Miss Wheelchair America has to do the exact same thing, make appearances, travel, still on their own dime. So it's up to us as the Brain and Spinal Cord Association. What we want to do is try to educate the state about this, because it's one thing to be in a wheelchair. Now you're telling me that because I have this limited income and whatnot, now I have to pay out of pocket. So with individuals coming and with them sending donations and whatnot to our organization, we then in turn put that into the Miss Wheelchair Louisiana, so that we can help her with her travel.
Fantastic goal. We got all the information on the screen about your Facebook page and things like that. And I guess they can leave a private message if they want to be contacted in person via telephone by either
Absolutely.
you or Karen or anybody else.
Tamara, Karen, myself. We also have a hotline on our website that you can call to find more information. But our Facebook page has been a great hub. It's a non-stop resource page to go to and get all the details you need.
Nicole, it's been a pleasure meeting you, and I'm so excited we're able to promote this for you guys so that we can get some people aware, number one. Number two, possibly get somebody that might want to enter in the next week or so.
I hope so too. Because this is this is a very meaningful competition. And not so much because you get to dress up and feel like fancy pants for a night. That there's so much more to it. It's really this network of women coming together. That to me is what everything. Because I gotta tell you, when you're in a position like this, it is extremely easy to feel alone. And referring back to your question from earlier about bitterness, when you do feel alone, it's very easy for that bitterness to creep in and take over. So having this amazing competition and having a way for these women to all meet each other, like they have each other's back. It's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal.
You are an incredible spokesperson for this organization. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. I can't take all the credit, but thank you very much.
I am so happy to meet you, and hopefully we'll get to meet you in person at some point when this COVID kind of calms down and we can get back to in-person stuff. Because I'd love to see that back here in Baton Rouge as soon as possible. That's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate this.
What a tremendous guest she is. What a tremendous spokesperson for that organization. I have on the screen the Brain Injury Association of Louisiana, United Spinal Association, Louisiana Chapter. There's their website, Brain Injury Association, Louisiana, United Chapter. Get information. If you know anybody that has a brain injury, don't forget them. Let's not forget people like Nick Tullier, the officer who served so unselfishly, and let's just never forget Nick Tullier. In fact, I have a couple of things here from his Facebook page that they update daily. If you haven't been to it in a while, again, kind of like 9/11, never forget. Praying for miracles, hashtag Team Nick, hashtag Back the Blue. This was the update from yesterday, the daily update, general condition. Nick had a seizure Sunday of this past weekend. Mary's pretty sure it caused by a plug in his windpipe. O2 had dropped, pulse oxygen went into an alarm, and then the vent went into alarm close to the same time. They used a spray into his nose to end the seizure pretty quickly, along with suctioning his trach. So these are just things that some of us just take for granted. And I guess it hit home with the Tullises to me because I know them very well. But this happens all the time. These are stories that we can tell with people all the time. So just don't forget these folks as you make your way around your day, your life, and support as much as you can. There's Rachel and Debbie right there. And again, they will make a full recovery, but I got to tell you, it can't be easy, and it won't be easy. And no longer will I ever hear on TV and think the same way. They're expected to survive. They have non-life-threatening injuries. Yeah, non-life-threatening injuries, but lifestyle-threatening injuries that you don't hear much about. You report about it the day it happens and the day after, and maybe a little bit the day after that, and then it wanes off. But these folks have a lifetime of injury to deal with. Wow. Anyway, it's been a great show. Thank you for joining us for the Ahysen Nation again. We have another great show for you coming up next week. It's every Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we have these on the WAFB site on our WAFB Plus channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Facebook, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and definitely join us each week. We have a lot of things going on our WAFB Plus channel. Take advantage of it. More ways for us to contact you and you to contact us. Tuesday, have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you tomorrow morning on 9 News This Morning. Take care.